Hey everybody, welcome back to the Obsidian Paranormal Podcast. I'm Jillian.
And I'm Myron.
And this is part 2 of our 2-part series on the Conjuring House investigations. So on the first episode, we discussed the history of the property, history of Rhode Island, the movie of the same name, and some of the claims of activity.
And on this episode, we're going to be only discussing the investigations.
It's been about a week since the last episode came out, and we left y'all off on a bit of a cliffhanger. We had just talked about how we had figured out on the first investigation that time didn't work, and that helped us for the other 2 investigations.
Yeah, and speaking of the time thing, there was a point in one of the investigations where you were in the closet in one of the upstairs rooms, the middle room, and you were doing an EVP session and thought you had been in there for 5 minutes and it had been almost a half hour.
And in that closet, we experienced another aha moment, which we are taking suggestions for new names for these aha moments. If you have a good idea, email us at obsidianparanormal@gmail.com. But during that EVP session, I found a Halloween mask in there from one of our favorite bands, Ghost. If you don't know this band, they dress up in costumes for their shows. And finding just a random Halloween costume mask for our favorite band in the closet of the Conjuring House was pretty significant.
Which is funny because in our investigation of the Salem Witchboard Museum, they had a Ouija board and a planchette for the band Ghost.
So yeah, that's what started the whole process. And when we were driving home, we actually heard the song Griftwood, which has a lyric in it that mentions conjuring.
Which is funny, too, because the second investigation on our way up there, that exact song played in the exact same spot on the road.
We shuffle our playlist, so the likelihood that the same song would play twice, months apart on 2 different investigations, the same spot on the road, highly unlikely. And I promise you guys, the band Ghost does not sponsor this podcast.
And getting back to the time thing, there was a point in one of our investigations there when we were in the bathroom and we got an EVP while doing a spirit box session that said there is no time here.
Now imagine Myron's in the bathroom with 3 women. And I was so creeped out in that bathroom, not by the fact that, there were other people in the bathroom with me, but it was just a really weird, odd feeling. And there was this closet in the bathroom that you can just look right down into the basement, and that creeped me out.
You didn't think it was cozy?
No, not at all.
Not even with the grid light?
No, not at all. I don't want to be sitting on a toilet with 3 other people looking at me.
Well, actually, if I'm not mistaken, there's a door in there that leads to what was a closet at one time where they said Carolyn Perrin was attacked by, was a coat hanger? Something like that. That's could be why you got creeped out.
Yeah, because I did talk in the first episode about how sometimes I get attacked by my own clothes. So maybe I was picking up on that energy.
To clarify what I said before about the EVP spirit box thing, technically, an EVP we wouldn't have heard with our ears. So while using the spirit box and hearing it live, technically, I guess, isn't an EVP.
But from a word nerd point of view, a voice coming out of a spirit box is electronic, a voice, and a phenomenon. And EVP stands for electronic voice phenomenon. So
it can work. Yeah, it can work either way.
I think so.
Oddly enough, when I was reviewing the evidence, I did come across one spot where there was what sounds like a whisper that all of us actually heard in the moment. So technically, I guess that would be an EVP, but at the same time, does it count because we all heard it at the same time, like live? What would you think?
I think that would count as an EVP because listening back to it, we all heard something, but we couldn't make out the actual words that you heard later on as the whisper, because I can clearly hear coming.
Yeah, when we played it back, we were able to hear that the words being said were, or the word being said was coming.
But on the recording, we're all saying, did you hear that? Yeah, I heard that. Yeah, I heard that. But nobody's like, yeah, I heard somebody whisper coming. So I think because we could sense something or hear something, but we couldn't make it out. But the electronic voice capturing equipment did capture it. It qualifies as an EVP. So says the word nerd.
Yeah, no matter what we call it, I would say it's still potential evidence.
So here's another one that doesn't really fit into a category. If you remember from part 1, we had talked about how during the Conjuring movie, the mom and the kids had played a game called Hide and Clap. So during our first investigation, we were all down in the basement and we wanted to see if maybe the spirits would clap for us and play the game with us like they did in the movie. And so we asked and we waited. We didn't hear anything. But then when you were doing the evidence review, you called me in and had me listen to it.
Yeah, and we ended up with 2 claps right in the middle of us talking about something not even related to that investigation.
I think I just said something like really embarrassing about like a part of my body hurting or something like that. And we hear 2 claps in the background and we didn't acknowledge it. So we didn't hear it with our ears. So it wasn't actual physical potential evidence, but it was captured by an electronic device. So it's not a voice.
Yeah, do they even have a word for it, what it would be? For claps or sounds that are not voices?
I mean, I think electronic audio phenomenon, EAP, would be appropriate because it would relate to footsteps and the ball bouncing that we caught upstairs. So to paint the picture, this was on the 3rd investigation. It was you, me, teammates Heather and Regina. We're sitting in the library, and on the video, we acknowledged the fact that all of us heard a noise. And we believed at the time it was the latch to the door of the basement jiggling. And then a little while later, a few seconds, you say, did you guys hear that? And we didn't hear what you heard.
Yeah, what I heard sounded like a ball bouncing, which when we played back the evidence later, you hear on the audio recorders, but we don't see anything on the video recorders.
Yeah, it sounds like a bouncy ball, or even like could possibly be footsteps. And there's nothing on any of the other cameras in any of the other rooms showing any type of ball or anything dropping. There's no explanation as to where this bouncy, thunky sound comes from. So I think it's another example of an EAP.
Yeah, we can call it an electronic bouncy thunky thingy.
Or an EBTTP.
That works.
I don't think it will catch on as well as an EAP.
But it's so easy to say.
I like it.
I'm sensing a pattern here with balls and doors because in one of the investigations, one of the doors that's in the foyer, it's where the washing machine is, opened on its own.
It seems like in this house, sometimes one door will open on its own, and then other times when we want a door to open, it won't. So if you remember from the movie, the mom gets out of bed in the middle of the night and she gets locked in the basement after she thought the kids were playing the hide and clap game. Well, at one point in our second investigation, we thought we were locked in the basement.
Which could have been user error, but all I'm saying is no one but us is ever going to see that video.
Could be user error, or it could be that time and doors don't work right in this house.
Another possibility.
It was probably user error.
But getting back to balls, we are thinking that it's possible that the spirits there are smartasses because aside from the clapping game that they did, there was a point where we had the light up cat balls and we're getting intelligent responses. And then once we put the camera on them, nothing.
Just like this doesn't have to do with balls. Sorry to change the subject off of balls. We'll get back to the balls in a bit. But we brought a motion sensor Halloween toy that we always call the alien head. And it's just like this goofy little Halloween toy that whenever you walk in front of it, it says like a phrase or...
Yeah, and it lights up. It's just basically eyes in a mouth.
And when we brought it to the second investigation, which was a few days before Halloween, it wouldn't work. We would walk in front of it and it wasn't recognizing us. We changed the batteries. It wouldn't work. So we thought maybe this old toy was on its last leg.
Even though it worked fine at home before the investigation.
Right. And then we brought it home and we're like, oh man, we really love this Halloween decoration. I guess we're going to have to, find something else to go put in its place when it started working again.
Yep. But getting back to balls again.
Myron, what is your obsession with balls? Do you have an obsession with balls?
I don't, but it's a possibility the spirits there do. One of the EVPs that we got there said, "Do you want to touch his balls?" Was that appropriate?
Well, what balls do you think they're talking about? Because I'm thinking they're talking bouncy balls.
No. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Then it's appropriate. All right. Are we done with the balls?
Yeah, I think so.
Because it did just remind me of, this was the first investigation where we started to use a digital word bank. And in general, like with equipment, I like to be able to dissect it to figure out how it works.
Yeah, because there are some things that we're very skeptical about.
Right. And this is one where I can't dissect it and figure out how it works, but I just know that it works. And it stemmed from the first investigation of the Conjuring House, where we had a guest. We had never met her before, and she was a friend of a friend. And she had gone out a couple times during the night when we had breaks to call and check in with her husband. And everything seemed well and dandy there. And we were using this digital word bank, and we got the name of her husband and the word cheating next to it. We didn't think anything of it until 2 weeks after this investigation. What happens? She caught him cheating, and they're divorced now. Just to explain this word bank a little bit further, we know that our cell phones are listening to us, our electronic devices that we bring with us, tablets, things like that. They're granted certain permissions that they can listen in and affect the algorithm and spit out. Like when I'm talking to somebody about needing to buy avocados, the next time I log on to my Facebook, I've got ads for avocados. So what we do with this word bank is we keep it on a tablet that doesn't ever get turned on for recreational use. We don't have any other apps on it. It's on airplane mode at all times. No location services turned on and no microphone permissions whatsoever. So this was turned off in a bag, separate from any conversations that this woman may have been having with her husband. And it just spits out his name and cheating without any algorithmic data to create that. And since that investigation, we've used this word bank and have gotten phenomenal results that we just can't explain. So speaking about snakes, there's a rumor that there's snakes in the well in the basement, but the only snake we encountered on that investigation was the cheating husband. The snakes in the well brings to mind another Warren case that's pretty famous.
Yeah, the Amityville Horror movie has a well in the basement, which isn't in the actual house. And there was also flies in both cases.
Yeah, so interesting, the correlation between two famous movies and two famous Warren cases, for sure.
And while we're on the subject of the basement, when we were down there, there was a folding chair that none of us sat in, and it had been there the entire time. No one sat in it the entire time. And yet on the thermal cam, the heat signature is lit up red, as if it's hot. But even to the touch, it was cold.
Yeah, it was a metal chair, and we had just all remarked about how cold we were when you took that thermal cam, pointed it at that metal chair, and it had a heat signature similar to somebody sitting in there. And if you're not familiar with how thermal cams work, we talked about that one in our Curioporium episode, and it gives a good explanation of that. It makes me wonder who was sitting in that chair, because isn't there a name that you always get on every investigation in your spirit box?
Yeah, there is. And actually, we got that in one of the other rooms of this house, actually in the bathroom upstairs.
Another person in the bathroom with us?
Yep. Yeah, and it's a name that's been coming up on the spirit box for years. So I'm kind of wondering if it's something following me.
Yeah, because it only ever shows up on your spirit box. I've never gotten those names from my spirit box.
Another thing that's funny about it, too, is it'll even come up when we ask if that person is present. Actually, there's two names that come up. But in this particular investigation, just one of them came up.
Yeah, it's a strange phenomenon that happens only with your spirit box, and it's consistent at each investigation. And I think it definitely warrants further investigation and further theorizing as to, is it attached to the spirit box itself? Is it attached to you? Is it just like a guide or guardian that wants to help? Because we've never felt anything malevolent or vindictive or anything negative from those particular names or your spirit box. In fact, most of my experience with your spirit box and any spirit box in general has been pretty positive. Like, we were down in the basement, and I believe Regina and I were asking questions, and you and Heather were under the Estes.
And at one point, you mentioned that you're looking at our feet to make sure we don't kick a table or something. And Heather says the word foot.
I think that was pretty helpful, or at least confirming that they were aware of what was going on in the room. So an intelligent response for sure. And oddly enough, it does bring to mind, I had decided to rest my eyes for just a few moments, 13 hours overnight. Everybody needs just a little rest. So I'd laid down on the living room couch and, of course, took off my shoe to not dirty the furniture. And I got woken up by something or somebody wiggling my toe. And I thought it was you trying to be cute to wake me up. And I was in the room alone. I do not like to be touched by any stranger, whether it's corporeal or spiritual. And I just very calmly said, you do not have my permission to touch me. And I was not touched any other time on that investigation. It seems like we've been concentrating on the basement a lot, but it really provided a lot of interesting experiences and potential evidence.
So to finish up with the basement, there was a point where we were doing a spirit box session, and Jillian and our guest were trying to get whatever's there to whistle. And it actually whistled right after Jillian did.
That was pretty sweet because we heard that.
Yeah, we heard it live too.
Yeah.
And the guest that was trying to get the whistling with Jillian ended up leaving because she wasn't feeling well. And once she left the house, felt fine.
Haunted places can affect different people differently depending upon their sensitivity to it. And obviously, the house made this person feel unwell. But on another investigation, one of our investigators lost a piece of jewelry. So we wonder, did the house make her forgetful?
And this one was really weird because it had a few significances.
The first significance was the word bank came up with lost, jewelry, pet, and a couple other words. And when it came up, Regina mentioned that morning she broke her hematite ring, which she uses as a tool for grounding when she investigates. I offered her my hematite ring as something to wear as a form of protection and grounding. And she said, no, she was okay. But then I remembered that I had had a hematite ring at a concert that we had gone to, the band Ghost, and had broken my hematite ring at that concert. And it was right around the time that we had adopted our new kittens.
We named Tobias after the singer.
And my new hematite ring had fallen behind the dresser. And it was a heavy dresser. I wasn't going to move it. But Tobias, the kitten, was under the dresser playing with dust bunnies and my ring. And that morning had pushed the hematite ring out from behind the dresser. And I had it with me. So it was pretty interesting that both Regina and I had something with a hematite ring. Now, just saying, hematite rings are notoriously easy to break. Hematite is a very soft stone. So all it takes is just one click on a hard surface and they can crack. But the Conjuring House is very interesting because it shows up in my dreams often. And Myron, you had a dream the night before.
Yeah, it's weird, actually. I had a dream the night before this investigation, and in the dream, there was a saucer that cracked. And at this investigation, Regina was telling us about her hematite cracking. I actually had said that I felt like that dream was going to be significant, and we didn't know that her jewelry had cracked. Could be coincidence, or it could be one of those aha things.
I think that it's definitely something because dreams are very significant in magic and especially, lucidity. It's a bridge to a different reality. And I really think that our dreams tell us things if we listen to them. But the final thing with the jewelry was that Regina also wore a necklace to every investigation. And at some point during the evening, we went to a local pizza place for, food, 13 hours, get hungry. And when she came back, she didn't have the necklace, but she couldn't remember when she last had the necklace. So we called the pizza place. They didn't see it in the lobby or the parking lot. And to this day, we have never found that necklace.
So between the personal experiences that we each had and the evidence that we were able to document, there's quite a bit. And we're going to keep this episode kind of short-ish. So there's only a few more things we'll mention. One of them being we were in the middle room upstairs, and Heather was in the closet that goes in between that room and the next room. We were doing the SDs. She had the headphones on. And we had asked if whoever she's communicating with could give us a name. And we got the name Emma, which to us isn't significant, but maybe somebody listening that's also investigated there might know.
Yeah, if that's significant to you or your team or some of the experiences that you had at that house, drop us a line. Again, obsidianparanormal@gmail.com. And I think the last piece of interesting experience that was consistent at all three investigations was the smell in the morning.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, too, because when we got there originally and it was light out, going from light to dark, the energy kind of shifted. And then in the morning, it kind of shifts back. But the smell was pretty much the same time each investigation. You want to describe it?
Well, I mean, going back to the bathroom talk, the best way to describe it is it smells like manure or poop, to the point where the first time it happened, I honestly thought I was being discreet by not mentioning it, just in case somebody had used the bathroom and there was no air freshener, didn't want to call anybody out. But then somebody else on the investigation said, "Why does it smell like poop in here?"
And we searched everywhere to try to figure out what that could be. And we could not figure it out any of the three investigations.
It is significant that it happens at the same time in all three investigations at sunrise. But this one is kind of one where it could have a logical explanation because wood holds on to smells. Like in our house, every now and then, no matter how many times we've cleaned the wood, it sometimes smells like cigarette smoke. And nobody smokes in this house because it's literally in the wood grain. So this had been a farmhouse for many years. Maybe there was manure that was on somebody's boot that kind of got ground into the wood and comes up. But why only when the sun rises is what I think makes it paranormal. Because if it was something that was just a natural thing, you would smell it all the time.
Yeah, and it lasted for only a few minutes each time.
Right. So that's what makes me think it's paranormal rather than logical. So I think you can tell by this episode, our opinion is that the Conjuring House in Burrville, Rhode Island is 100% haunted.
Yeah, I have to say I agree. Well, that's it for this episode. We'll be back in 2 weeks with our next episode, which will be on the Book Barn in Niantic, Connecticut.
We wanted to thank the Conjuring House for 3 awesome investigations. If you'd like to see pictures or read more about these investigations, our website is obsidianparanormal.org. We're all over social media at Obsidian Paranormal. Thank you all for listening. If you haven't yet, please subscribe, rate, and review. Also, if you can share with your friends, that's how we grow. And we can't wait to see you in 2 weeks. And until then, stay spooky.